everyone, welcome back to another episode of Team Chunya Coffee Talk. Today we also have Antito who's helping us to talk about tax debts and also your mental health. So Antito, recently I heard that a lot of people are stressing out regarding the tax problem and stuff. Can you share some of ways that people can alleviate that problem and help them with their mental stress?
Yes, I'm well, good to see and be able to participate in another episode of Tim Junya and Coffee Talk. Man, what an amazing topic to bring up.
Right.
Obviously, we're not doctors, we're not psychoanalyzing folks or in any way put ourselves in a position to judge folks, but I think that the important topic of it is just the fact that mental health is so important in our community, in our family, in our own business, in dealing with the clients, dealing with our peers.
Right.
And so when you talk about tax debts, you think of, financial debts, dealing with your taxes every year, filing your tax return, maybe owe more money than you thought.
Right.
But we forget sometimes that does trigger or that does cause a deeper impact on your well-being, right? The way you pay your bills, the way you confront your financial problems, the way you deal with each other, because the fact that it stresses you out. You feel overwhelmed. You feel like you're at the end of the road, right? You feel like you consulted or even reached out to professionals and tax debt settlement companies out there and hoping they'll help out, but 90% of the time it's a cost, it's an expense that you don't get much of a benefit or return from, right? And that's a different topic for a different day. But frankly, you hear all the time radio shows and TV commercials and how much people talk about, let us help you solve your tax debt problem, negotiate with the IRS. And again, I've done that many years, and I'm still working on that as well as part of my business. But I'll be honest with you, as your friend, as your advisor, it's not always easy, and you don't always get that settlement as they promise. Okay, you literally got to be in debt, meaning insolvent. You literally got to be owe and not have the capacity to work and earn money, or bankrupt, or whatever the case, where you becomes uncollectible. It's really when they negotiate and work with you. So they're not gonna just say, oh, well, let's settle $500 for that $500,000 you owe us. That's not gonna happen, right? And they're gonna look at your financials for 2 years. They're gonna require a lot of documentations, a lot of things to be done on your part, okay, in order for them to even look at you or talk to you.
Right.
So that's really where some of these companies make their money, right? Is that they promise these type of results and then put you in the position to do all the work. And then if you fail to do the work, well, guess what? They still charge you because they got their payments, right? Their what do you call those, retainers, right? So anyway, so your topic, the topic that you brought up, I think is relevant and important. So if I can add, some value today in those 5 things, I'd be more than happy to share with you. And again, this is just our interpretation, our perspective, our opinion on what we think and what we're experiencing today and all the years, 18 years of doing this, that the 5 most important things that I think you should do to confront your tax debt and ultimately your financial well-being and your emotional well-being, okay? So I think the first thing first, right, it's one caveat, no judgment pass. This is just relating and connecting with one another. But with anything that you do, you gotta start with a plan, right? I'm planning to resolve my tax debt by the end of this year, right? I'm planning to make this much payments to them, or withhold my additional taxes in my W-2, or pay the estimated taxes every quarter to minimize this seems like ever growing tax debt that I owe him every year, right? My plan is to make sure that I file all my tax returns because I'm missing a couple of years. My plan is, so that's the plan, right? And then you back that up with the strategies and the behavior. The strategy is to do this myself, go onto our website, get into an account, get an account with IRS or franchise tax board, take a look at my current tax situation. Am I missing a tax return? Where does the tax balances I owe are coming from, right? What's missing in terms of the transcript that I'm getting there, that it doesn't make sense to me. The income that it's reporting on there doesn't seem like that's the job that I had. I gotta confront that part. So the strategies comes after the plan. The behavior change, right, comes with the strategy, meaning that you literally have to take action. Okay, so that means if you cannot do this yourself, and you can, a part of the action could be calling the tax debt settlement companies, and I just give you a warning about that. But if you want to do that, that's still an action. But at what cost, right? It's going to cost you $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. What are they giving you back in return, as far as results, as far as service? Okay. Now the other part is, like I said, if you want to do this yourself, I'm going to walk you through every step to do this yourself. We did that in the previous episode, how to deal with the IRS or tax advocates and all that, right? But I just want you to reinforce your plan with actionable behavior change, right? Actionable plan and strategies that could be measured, that could be calculated, could be tracked. And I think that leads to my third item as far as accountability is keep a daily accountability track. And I mention it every day, whether it's my business, running a tax and financial planning business, opening a restaurant, hiring people, whatever it is you're doing, you need to have something written down, okay? I want to do this is how I want to do it, and this is the things I need to do today. Today, September 9, 2022. Today, September 11, 2022. This is what I've done today. So every day, it's called daily accountability tracking. We do that in the office. All our employees do that. Every one of us keep a daily tracking. One, we can see where we're going, right? We can track as far as any mental notes, any strategy, any thoughts, any type of eureka moments that we have. Put it down there, right? Sometimes, like I said, you're researching on tax debt settlement company. Well, write it down. What company are you talking about? The pros and cons of the review that you receive from them. What are the costs, right? And then, if I'm sharing you and give you information, don't just look at me without blank look. Take notes, right? Write it down. Exactly. Play this video over and over again. Whatever you got to do, but keep a daily accountability tracking, right? Yep. So I think that in itself will lead you to be on the right track. Okay.
Yep.
So.
I was taking notes as you were talking about it too. See, I'm taking accountability.
Well, I mean, you see the sheet that we have here, right? And again, we have topics we want to discuss, but there are constantly new ideas and thoughts going through your mind. And yes, we are constantly distracted by various things, right? And you have to learn, again, that this is not, a counseling session, but this is more like this is what worked for us, okay?
Right.
Gotta compartmentalize things, right? Keep everything separate. If today I'm dealing with my tax debt, I'm gonna talk about the tax debt that I need to do and that. Yes, I might have been, woken up and had runs, bills to pay and errands to run and all this and that, but I'm gonna stay focused on this, right? And dedicate myself. If this is something that needs to fix and get back on my financial well-being track, these are the tangible, specific thing I got to do today, right? And so I would say, be intentional with that, write it down, track it, okay? We keep each other accountable because I get to see whatever is tracked there, they get to see what I'm putting on there as well, right? And a lot of times, it's just informational. It might not be worth anything, but today I saw a website that had some resources available for me. I'm putting that on there, right? And a moment of reflection sometimes is just be able to go back and say, okay, it's been a month already, I'm not getting anywhere. Let me look back in the last 30 days. What action have I taken? What headway? What resources and outlets have I reached out to, right? If I've gotten nowhere, then guess what? I got to change my plan. The plan ain't gonna work if you keep doing it over and over again and expect the same different result, right? So I would say, that would be the first thing that I would think of is to create a plan, a strategy, an actionable, system, and keeping it in writing, right? Keep it,
So I mean, the first thing is they have to figure out if, what's the problem for them with the tax problem, right? That's why we're checking out on the IRS and whatnot to see if they had already submitted and, all their tax return with the year, right? Which one is missing and whatnot.
Right. Well, and again, sorry to be redundant. We did talk about this in the previous episode.
Right.
I would say, get your arms around your tax life and your tax situation, which means that, from the federal standpoint, that's the IRS. From the state standpoint, that's California or whatever state you're in. You got to make sure you know what the state has on you in terms of your tax situation. Are you current? Are you, is there a debt related to a certain tax year? Are there certain income that's issued to you that you don't know about? So that having that account with FTB, IRS would be helpful. So I would say, if you want to talk about number one as one of the more important items, would be don't conflate things, right? Keep it simple, meaning every problem, every issue is its own, I would say, box, right? Meaning that don't think, okay, I have my tax problem, so now I'm a terrible parent, or I have a terrible financial plan, or you put everything together and it overwhelm you, right? So you say, okay, take one situation at a time.
Right. Open each box at a time.
Right. Open each box. Like they say, that's what I mean by compartmentalize. Every compartment is separated, right? If you look at the kitchen and it's all in one big box, you get frustrated, you get flustered, you get overwhelmed. But you separated them. Right. Eventually, we're gonna have to open every one of them.
But at least it's like you open one and then you resolve it, fix it, and then move on to the next one.
Organize it, clean it, move it to the next one. Okay, so separate, whatever tax problems they are with, each own particular box. Okay, if it's 2018, we're gonna work on 2018 and fix that. If it's 2019, we'll fix that. If it's IRS, we'll fix IRS. If it's FTB, we'll work with FTB. Right. If it's business, personal, we're working on the personal. But don't get overwhelmed. Don't conflate one problem with another problem. Right. Tax, business, personal, all that. I think, yes, it sounds kind of common sense, but when I deal with clients and they talk about taxes, 90% of the time it's other issues that come into affecting them that cause the tax problem.
Right. Yep, and I totally agree with that. I mean, I think everything in any walks of life is the same thing, right? It's all about like managing your problem, but prioritizing. Right. There's deadline, then you should do the deadline first, and move on to the next one that you can take times and doing it. Not just like overwhelm yourself with a lot of problems and a lot of issue, and then you can't get anything out because your mind is just playing on you, Right.
So I mean, to be specific, you're writing down, right, a list of all the issues you have. You tackle one issue at a time, right, and how you're gonna tackle them, and how you're gonna resolve them.
Right.
Okay. Understand one thing. Okay. That the IRS is not there to, and I know the talk's been out there. There's 87,000 revenue agents going to come out and chase you, and and harass you and all that. That's again. There's negative talk. It's not going to do any help to your mental health, right? You can't control that. Control what you can control, right? And that means write down specific issues, strategy, plan, actionable items, and accountability. Okay, so tackling one issue at a time would be a very important topic or strategy. I think the other thing too is that it gets very overwhelming when you get letters, notices, not phone calls. Okay, they don't ever call you unless you tell them to call. Okay? And they call me, but they don't call you because I'm your representative, I'm your agent. Right. But I would say deal with each letter one at a time. Okay, and I think in the previous episode we talked about the two most important letter. I think the CP 2000 and the 32, I believe, 19 form, the notice of deficiency. If you don't know what they are, reach out to us, Google it, give us a call, text us. We'll be more happy to share with you what they mean and how to respond to those letters and notices. But if you're our client, and we do this for all our clients, and this is not a recruitment for you to be our client, but hey, and I'm sure if you have people that you work with, take a picture of it. If you're not sure anything, send it to them. But don't ignore, right? Don't feel like, oh, this is an audit, but don't assume the worst of it, okay? A lot of it is just clarification. A lot of it is just them not seeing what you see, and, their job is to send out letters, okay? You, as a taxpayer, as an American, you have rights, rights to a fair trial, right to for them to be fair to you, right to be able to respond within a reasonable amount of time. Okay, don't not ignore it, because you ignore it. If more letters come in, guess what? That's going to add more stress.
Right.
Okay. So I would say another thing that if you talk about, tackling one issue at a time, keeping track of your actions, behavior, and accountability plan, and dealing with the letters and invoices is to reach out to the IRS if you have the time, and if this is one you do it yourself, to take down names and their ID numbers. They always call, pick up the phone, and they'll give you their names and their ID number, and oftentimes we ignore it, right? We're like, okay, whatever. There's a reason why, there's an additional funding and support to the IRS. Okay, and this is not to criticize them, all right? They're our friends to a certain extent if you do it right. But there are reasons why they're lacking resources. There are reasons why people complain and constantly feeling frustrated because you don't get always the right answer, right? Sometimes you got to call 2 or 3 times just to confirm, and each time you call, you get a different answer. So I would take down name, down their ID number, right, as a way to keep them accountable. Okay, so now I'm asking you to keep yourself accountable, but you also keep them accountable. Whether it's IRS or FTB, they have ID number, station number, and the name. You write that down because at the end of the day, when you have to put something in writing as a protest, as an appeal, that's your alibi. That's your statement of facts. That I contacted them. This is who I spoke with. This is the information. So going back to that, writing things down, taking notes, not just what you learn or what you experience and what useful information, but also taking notes on what are they telling you. Right. That's also a way to know, like, okay, does this make sense? Is this the right answer I'm giving? And sadly, I have a direct line, the practitioner line, but frankly, sometimes I don't get the right answer. I have to call back a couple of times and confirm the information. You don't have that privilege and honor to be able to call directly to the practitioner line. And the people that you normally get are always expert in certain areas, so you will get different conflicting information. And that's sad because it's not the way to be done, and it takes 2 or 3 hours sometimes to get through. And I'm saying that not as using exaggerations. Literally, the last 3 weeks or so, we've been on hold for 2 or 3 hours a day. I was on hold for an hour and a half calling the foreign line because I have some foreign taxpayers, and I'm dealing with some issues with their refunds not matching with their EIN or ITIN. And the last 3 weeks or so, can I get through? And every time we call, it's an hour and a half on hold. And these are cases I took on because the realtor who actually sold their home did not fill out the right paperwork. And not to say that I'm blaming people, I'm just saying these are very common issues that I deal with, particularly in the area of foreign income reporting and income taxpayer. But anyway, my point is that keep track of everyone's name, all right?
But on that point, it's like luckily your client have you to like take care of that for them, right? Imagine like when you're stressing out about all of this and you have to be on the call with like, try to get an IRS agent or whatnot, right? And on hold for like 2 or 3 hours, you probably don't even have that time, most normal people.
Right. No, I agree. I agree, and I'm sharing all this with you, not to make it sound like all dramatic, and exaggerated, but this is the reality of what we're dealing with, okay? And I'm again, my stress is my stress. I'm dealing with it in my own way. I don't want you guys to go through that stress, right? So I think part of minimizing your stress is to know, to know who you're dealing with, to know, that the capacity or the resources that the IRS and the tax agency have are not always sufficient and not always up to par, okay? I would say the second one, along the same line of keeping things in writing, is to literally filling out all the forms that we need to fill out, okay? And what does that mean? That means, well, guess what? You have tax debts, okay? You have penalties, you have fees. We talked about the last episode about how to have fees and interest, and not interest, but fees and penalties abated right? Or questioning why certain things are being charged. Calling them, but yet sometimes I won't get always a response, so you have to put it in writing, right? So learn how to fill out those forms. The 843 form is an abatement request form. You can Google that. It's online. It's available everywhere. Fill out those forms, okay? Because that, in a way, allows you to have something in writing to share your alibi, your perspective and stories on how you disagree with the IRS and how, why they should be able to waive the fees and penalties, okay? Or your financials, the 433F, the 433A and B forms. Those are actually financial forms to tell the IRS your version, your story of your current financial situation. Because in order for them to work with you, they need to know. They're not going to work with you if you got $1 million in a bank account, right? You got 10 cars in your assets, and you have various businesses, right? And if that's the case, we have different ways and strategy to deal with the IRS. But for most of us, there's a reason why we have those tax debts, right? It's because our financial situations are it's in the dire, and that necessarily we're needing some help right now, right? And that help needs to be conveyed in the forms that is accepted by the IRS, right? And that could be the 843 form of abatement request or 433 financial statements, okay? And the financial statement tells them, first of all, who you are, what year we're looking at in terms of you wanting to resolve and settle, and also where are you at right now financially? Do you have mortgages that you're still paying? Are there medical expenses? Are there rents? Are there just expenses that just overwhelm you each day? But it's shown in number sense, right? So that at least they say, okay, you owe us $5,000, but when I'm looking at your overall financial statements, look at your personal balance sheet, you're negative, or you only have $200 left. How the hell is you able to survive with just $200 left over at the end of the month, right? And so they, will be more willing to work with you if they see, right, that clearer picture of your financial position, okay, by filling out that form. So that sounds like, okay, simple enough. I just fill out that form. You'd be surprised how many people, first of all, don't know what those forms are. Number two, you give them a form, they get overwhelmed.
Right.
Okay, so my story has always been, if you hire somebody, great, they'll do all that for you. Why? You can do that yourself and still hire them for other more important work, right? Look at the financials, just like a form you fill out for a credit card application. Fill out for financial aid if you're a student, or fill out for a job application if you're looking. It's the same thing, okay? But this is the reflection of what your current financial situation is. Fill that form out. If hopefully it gives you some insight to where you at, maybe it gives you some perspective on why do I always have this financial problem with tax debts, because look at all the assets I have, all the debts I owe, right? And all the burdens I have by looking at overall A to Z items that shows you, what your current situation is, right? In a financial picture, okay? I'm not asking you to write essays. This is all numbers. And the IRS will use this to measure and estimate what is allowable and what's not, right? And so just because you put in $5,000 for rent, doesn't mean they're going to accept that either. But if you don't put anything on there, they're going to assume you don't pay rent, okay? There's a difference, okay? So there are industry standards the IRS uses too. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics uses averages for a certain state. Obviously California cost of living is a lot higher, so they allow us a little more. Okay, so obviously that number two is basically be able to fill out those questionnaires and financial statement thoroughly. Okay, they don't have to be perfect. They're gonna actually look through it and go over with you every line item, but put it in writing. Instead of this just the accountability plan we talked earlier, this is in writing in terms of the financial numbers. Okay, know what assets you have, what balances you owe, the credit card, all the various credit card, all the car, finance statement, car debts you have, or the rent and living expense you have every day. Fill that out. Know that, and matter of fact, it doesn't have to be just for tax debt. Everybody should be able to fill that damn financial statement out, so at least they know where they're at, where they stand. You know what I mean? Does that help?
Yes. I think I have to fill out that form too and see where I'm at.
All right, so that to me, it's important. I would say the third one, and equally important, is reach out to tax and professional help. Right? We do this for a reason, because we felt that we want to convey strategy, tactics, advice that we've been going through and using this for our clients. And this is another way to appeal to the masses and reach out to the most population which we can, right? So that it's also an acknowledgement that we cannot help everybody, right? That oftentimes, we're overwhelmed with so much demand, right? That this is a way for us to communicate better. But I'm just saying, but having said that, we always wanted you to say, don't assume that we cannot help either.
Right.
Right? There are other professionals out there, and there are times when we will be more than happy to be able to give you some feedback what that form means, how to fill out a form, right? How to confront certain problems without having you to be our customer. Does that make sense? You know, and that could be the technology where we able to respond to you through emails. That could be a way for us to give you an organizer or questionnaire form that the IRS uses so that you can kind of see, you know, what would be the standard number to use.
Right.
So we're not saying we're not going to help you.
Right.
I'm just saying I'm hoping, in addition to us reaching out to you, that you know there will be a time where we can add more value to you, right? Given the fact that you know we do this every day, and the fact that you know this is our profession.
Yeah.
But don't take that as a deterrent for you to not reach out. Okay. I talk in a way to say like, oh, you know, hey. Be careful with the tax debt settlement company because they're all about money. It's true, but some of them could help you, and I'm not saying all of them are bad. Reach out to them, do your risk reward analysis to see if it's really worth it for you to pay them $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 for the service they provide for you, right? So that's one way. But don't just think like, okay, I'm gonna give $6,000 to somebody even though I owe the IRS $16,000. Right, because now all of a sudden your debt becomes $22,000.
Right.
And it doesn't guarantee that $60,000 you owe the IRS is going to be taken care of or be waived or lower. Right. Okay. So there are tax advocates out there. We mentioned that in the last episode that the tax advocate, TAS, tax advocate service, is there to help you even if you do not have the financial means to pay for professional service like ours. Okay. So reach out to tax advocate if you and somehow cannot afford some support or help, you can reach out to them. Okay, your peers, your friends, your advisor. Use me as your guide. Like I said, I'm scared because there are times when I'm bombarded with a lot of questions, and we try to answer every question we could. But just don't be deterred and say, "Well, he's too busy." For me, I'm gonna not ask him a question. If you're going through some financial stress, and if I can in any way minimize it by just using my knowledge and expertise, the very least I can do is answer your email, right? Or help our resources and team members respond to your email. Okay, so I think that's relevant in terms of knowing that there's professionals out there to help.
Well, as Antito had mentioned, there are resources out there, and if you ever need help, just reach out to or check out our website, oursalonmoms.com. Send in any question or concern if you're stressed about, your tax debts and whatnot. Then again, fill out a quick questionnaire. He may be busy, but his team is still there. And I mean, when he can, he'll be able to respond to your email. Even if you're not one of his customers, he'll be able to answer if you have a quick question, how to fill out forms or, what's method that you can proceed in resolving your tax debts. Okay?
Thank you. That's a great point. So I didn't want to just be redundant and just keep saying like, hey, we're here to help. I'm also hoping that we're able to empower you to take some action. Right? The problem sometimes is that we've seen people who feel empowered and they take action, but they took the wrong action, right? And that's fine. At least you try, but you got to be nimble, right? You literally got to be nimble. And something is not working, you got to change that strategy. So I'll be real quick. I think I don't want to take. Like we mentioned earlier, I think having, obviously the plan. We talked about the plan, the strategy, having things in writing, understanding that you need to put your financials, meaning your numbers, where you're at financially or your overall financial situation into the IRS accepted forms, right? But let me talk about the plan in regards to what they call an installment plans, okay? Understanding this, okay, just because you owe them any amount of tax debts, they're not saying, hey, we're gonna come knock on your door and pay us the full amount, okay? They will work with you on a on an installment plan, okay, based on your financials, okay? So and again, you don't need anybody to help you with this. And I'm saying just this like, I'm not trying to say like, hey, it's easy. I'm just saying it ain't rocket science either. Okay, but the installment plan is your best friend. And what it does is it's your way to communicate to the IRS that, hey, I know you guys want your money, and I know you guys need us to communicate with you a way for us to, a way for me to meet my financial obligations. Let's work on a plan, okay? And so what I'm talking about is an installment plan, okay? That says, I owe you $10,000. I can only afford $200 a month, okay, and conceivably my tax liability might go down because I might get a refund next year, or I might need to fix my taxes because God forbid my taxes was done incorrectly, right? But in the meantime, let me meet some of your minimal requirements, and that means I might have to pay you every month, right?
And giving the IRS that a signal that yes, these people owe us money and they're working on towards paying that off.
Correct.
Not just like totally ignoring it.
Right. Ignoring is not responding to the letters, ignoring is not paying them.
Yeah.
But also you're not paying them in full, right? Understand, if you don't pay them in full, there will be interest, penalties, and all that. But when you're in a plan, what they call an installment plan, it's a way to say, minimize my expenses, minimize my damage. Let's, let me pay you slowly, right? So the longest they'll give you is 5 years, okay? That's literally 60 months. Okay, so they call it the Fresh Start program. They look at your overall tax debt divided by 60 months. That's literally how much you can pay them every month, right? Give it a little cushion.
Good to know, yeah.
Right. So if you think about it, that's a long time. Now, of course, interest.
It's like a car payment.
It's a car payment, but you're paying the IRS, which we all owe the IRS somehow, some way, whenever, one time or another, right? So what I'm saying here is like get into that plan. But in order for you to get that plan to work for you the most, it's based on your financial statement, the 433 forms, right? So number 4 was fill out that form because that's your way to communicate with them. But understand that you have the right to work with them to pay them less than what you owe, but within your bracket.
That you can afford
right,
to do it.
within your budget, within your capacity. And your capacity is based on what you fill out in the financials. Okay. So there's 2 types of installment plan. One is a regular installment plan where you divide by 60 months based on what you owe. There are situations where you owe so much that 60 months it's more than what you owe, or more than what you're capable of paying, right? Based on your financial statements. So believe it or not, okay, that could still be workable where they can look at your financials. And again, financial could somewhat be subjective. It's really based on who you deal with on the other side. There are IRS collection agents are very reasonable, and they show empathy, and they can say, hey, we work with you, even though it's an installment plan for less, okay, than for less than what that 60 months limit is allowed. So don't just give up just because you said, man, I did the math, I divided by 60 months.
Right.
It's still $500 a month. It's more than what I have left over as far as my liquid funds, available funds for me to live by, right? Because I'm looking at my income, I'm looking at my expenses. I got $600 left at the end of the month. Now the IRS wants $500 of that. Okay, the IRS is not going to be unreasonable and say, man, yeah, give us that $500 because you have $600 in your bank account at the end of the month. They know that there's other expenses as well. Okay, so they can actually do an installment plan for less, believe it or not. And I take pride in saying this, that I work with them many times to work with high tax balance clients who have to buy a house or sell a house, and they have a lien on their home, or have a tax lien, and that they cannot proceed to selling or buying without having that lien taken off. And oftentimes we work with the IRS directly to get that plan in place so that the lien could be released. Okay, that could be for a different episode, but get into an installment plan, regular or for less. Okay, so I would say that's number 4.
That's good to know. Oh, actually, on that point, I actually have a question, because you have mentioned that, we could get into an installment plans, right, for taking care of the tax that you owe. But then what if the following year you get a tax refund? Can we, or we could, I guess, opt it into a selection and using whatever our refund towards that payment plan and speed up?
No.
Okay, see.
When you owe them, right? even though you have an installment plan, they're only paying $300 or whatever.
Right.
Well, you still owe them $10,000 overall. So there's a refund in future year. They're always going to take that first.
Oh, okay. So it's not even off that we can take that money out.
Because some folks are smart and they say, well, let me just withhold very minimal on my taxes.
Right.
And I'm going, oh, well, you can do it that way by having less taxes taken out. But there are cases where the IRS literally said you cannot go exempt. You cannot withhold less because we know that you're always going to have, this balance owed to us.
Okay.
Right. That's why they charge interest and penalties, because anytime you owe them, they know that they're losing money on you not paying them, right? Okay. And people will be strategic by having less withholding in their W-2s, right? That means at the end of the year they have less of a refund,
right?
But then they will have more to spend on their own terms, right? But then the IRS is like, well, these guys only paid me $300, but yet they're making a lot more than what he's showing his financials. Okay. So yes, trust me on this. They're a couple of steps ahead of us. Okay? And you can do that if you want. But to me, you're losing sight of the bigger picture. We're trying to get this thing resolved. Don't need to play games and change your withholdings to have less taxes now so that you can spend more on other things when you know darn well that this tax liability is not going to go away. One way or another, you're going to owe them. And you actually brought up a good point about this whole future refunds, okay? Because even those who have been classified as uncollectible, meaning that, hey, even though you owe us $50,000, $100,000, and we know that based on your financials, you can't pay us every month because of your capacity to pay us or your financial situation or your age, we're just going to classify you as uncollectible. So that means they're not going to chase after you. They're not going to harass you. They're not going to send you letters, but they remember that you still owe them. So any future refunds you get, it's still going towards your tax debt. So just because you're uncollectible, that doesn't get you out of the wood fully. Right,
right. So you're going to be on the blacklist of IRS, and any kind of income and refund you have, it's going to go towards your debt. You're not going to get any refund until you take care of that debt first.
Right.
Okay, that's a really good point to know.
I know this is an important last point, but I wanted to actually bring that up first, but it's connected in this whole tax debts and financial well-being, is that make sure we file all our tax returns, okay? Even the year that you do not owe or you don't think you made any money, it's because, again, you might not think you're required to file, but, and this is mostly for California, there is a requirement to file if they see that you have a mortgage right under your name and there's interest accrue or interest charge, okay? And yes, there are situations where I have a mortgage and I didn't work that year, so I had to use my resources and funding to to pay for that mortgage. The state oftentimes thinks that, hey, this guy's making some money on the side. He's not filing his tax return, because if he didn't make money on the side, how else would he be able to pay his mortgage?
Right, good point.
Right? They assume that, right? And there are so many cases, picked up and throughout the years, is that, hey, I got this letter from Franchise Tax Board that says, they're needing a tax return from me, and I don't have any income that year, right? I was unemployed, or I travel abroad, or whatever I did, right? And best case scenario, you call them, you let them know, explain the situation, bam, no problem. Worst case scenario, I've seen many people got their bank garnish and levy and taking money taken out from their bank account because Franchise Tax Board assumed they had some extra income that they did not report. Okay, so IRS is not that aggressive, but California is. So my point being is that file all tax returns, even though it's zero, just file it. Okay, so that you're on record. When you look at your account transcript, you see the tax return received from the state, you see IRS transcript, you see other return place, and frankly, they would not work with you in any type of installment plans if you do not have all your tax return filed. So number one, as a practitioner in dealing with anybody tax debt, let's look at all the years that are missing, right? Let's file those years, okay? Yes, it's complicated because sometimes it's 10 years back, right? And you got to look at the transcripts. Sometimes there's stock trade that doesn't have cost basis, right? Sometimes there are W-2s that don't have regular W-2 form because they have EIN and all this, because sometimes the transcript is only summaries and they're redacted, they're kind of blocked off, and you don't have all the California ID and IRS ID number. So it gets kind of, like I said, tricky, but it's not hard. You still have to file it, and you can find the account number later. It's just that once you file everything, then you basically said, hey, I meet your obligation, the minimal obligation of being in compliance. Let's work on negotiating. Let's work on installment plan. Let's work on, filing all the taxes. And very, very important, a lot of the tax debt is owed. Sometimes go back to previous years, and it's not necessarily the return that you file. So sometimes what the IRS does is what they file is substituted returns. Right? So they might have notified you, hey, Mr. John Doe, we have requested you for hundreds of times for you to file a return. You didn't, maybe not 100 of times, but a couple of times you didn't respond, right? And so we filed a return for you. And they don't tell you when they'll file a return for you. They just do it. But when they file the return for you, obviously they don't know your situation as far as your expenses, your deductions, who you claiming, had a household, married, filing joint, whatever it is. They're just assuming and giving you their standard, right, of what you should be filed. And a lot of time when I see tax debts, I see those years are the one that has the biggest debts, right? And people think, oh yeah, I didn't have to file that year because I ignored it and didn't have a problem. And then on the transcript it says file, but it does says substituted return. That means they did it for you.
Yeah,
okay?
Just assuming the standard of their households and whatnot, right?
Right. So along with filing all the tax years for all the missing years, going back and see which year was substituted, and we gotta file it your way, right? With your expenses, with your deductions,
with your numbers and stuff,
right? With your facts, not what they interpret.
Right.
So I think those 5 items are important.
Wow.
I hope that I'm sorry. This episode we kind of ran on a little too long, but it's complicated. I know a lot of us go through a lot of things with life, especially with COVID. Relationship, health, inflation. You throw it all that. People throw all that at you, and it becomes overwhelming. And so, at least some part, some way, in the area of tax, tax liabilities, that we're able to add some value to hopefully, ease your minds and ease your concerns about how to deal with it, because it's not worth for you to stress over. It's not worth for you to be in the dark, and whether it's our channel or anybody, there's so much information out there, reliable information that you can get that at least give you some sense that there's a roadmap, there's a way out, you know what I mean? And if I follow, and again, I'm putting that on you, right? Plan, strategy, accountability, put all that in there, behavior change, right? You're on your way.
Thank you so much for all of that valuable information, and Tito. I know I myself feel like that's so much value in there. So again, to reiterate a little bit, do not try to not stress so much. Tackle each of your problem one at a time. And if you can't resolve the problem yourself, reach out to your tax professional, or even reach out to our website, oursalonmoms.com. And if you have any concerns, please do not stress out and, try to do it yourself when you can't. There's professional and resources out there for you. So again, thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Antito, for your valuable time. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Thank you.